Hello and welcome back for Game 3 PTQ here in Liverpool. Before I was rudely interrupted by Neil Rigby actually winning Game 2, we were going to talk briefly about how Chalice of the Void completely cripples this Aura's deck.
Yeah, it's a major problem for. I was actually very surprised not to see Crows and Grip in the sideboard of Neil or Matt Light's decks. I felt that maybe they felt like it wasn't going to be as big of an issue, but the card's just such a pain for the Aura's deck.
Yeah, if you think a deck though is going to slip under the radar and not going to be hated, I mean, there's not a whole lot of other reasons for bringing in a card like, well, Chalice into this format.
It's decent against the Storm decks. It's really or the Storm decks of the time. It was a pretty good answer to those decks, and it wasn't too bad against other decks. Well, the Tron decks occasionally had access to it.
Yeah, Tron doesn't do much in the way of 1-drops.
No. Well, it does have the chromatic stars and everything. Mainly, it's Chalice on 2 that Tron wants to avoid or put down. Chalice on 1's pretty unhelpful for it as it tries to cycle its mana.
Well, the general idea is that you play your 1-drops, you play your 2-drops, and then you drop your Chalice for 1 or 2.
And Neil just thinking a bit here.
Well, he's got his monster, which is makes a bit of a change for him.
Yep. Alessandro is using his Springleaf Drum for a Thought Cast.
The best card in Robots decks still.
Yep.
1 mana for 2 cards.
And usually 1 brings 2 on that front. And
he's drawn his basic.
Yeah. So bad luck if Neil has Path to Exile there. But he's also got Outbound Ravager, which is...
And he's dropped his Guts, and that's generally what Robots is hoping to do here.
Yep.
So immediately now Neil becomes the control player, so he's looking to sort of get some defences up here.
1 card he wouldn't mind seeing at this point is Spirit Mantle. Just to give himself a little bit of protection, although he still can't block an Ornithopter or a Signal Pest at that point. But it does mean that at least Alessandro has to use his Ravager at that point. That's Spirit Link from Neil.
It's important to know the rulings on Spirit Link.
Yeah, Spirit Link is a triggered ability, unlike Life Link.
So Life Link, as we all know, the life totals change at the same time damage is dealt, but Spirit Link being a triggered ability, after damage has
after damage has resolved it, the ability goes on the stack, and
which
that
means
also
that you can, if you hit 0 before you gain the life back, you're dead.
Yep, but it also means on the other front that you can stack multiple Spirit Links. Whereas you can't stack multiple life
Neil
links.
found out this in about round 5. He had 2 Spirit Links going on a creature.
And it looks like Alessandro's using his Springleaf Drum to good effect, and that's Thought Seize.
It's amazing how you can do all these multicoloured spells just off
yeah.
Springleaf Drum.
And
so he's definitely going to hit here.
Yeah, he's caught a Coronet in Neil's hand there.
But he doesn't need to read what all the other cards do, because he's seen the best one.
Yep.
He's still going to read them. Here we go.
Yeah. There's a Glade Cover Glade Cover Scout in there, a Path to Exile.
What do these cards do? In this silly deck I've never seen before. Because UK players never use Magic Online to find out about this stuff ahead of the tournament.
Still does surprise me. I mean, the information's out there if people want it. And another Outbound Ravager from Alessandro. And attacks from Signal Pest and the Outbound Ravager. Neil's going to take it. One thing that is quite an interesting area to talk about in these games, with Neil mulliganing down to 4, I know that Neil had quite a difficult decision in these games, and it's fairly, I would say a lot of players tend to let previous mulliganing decisions really affect what they're doing on the table. They don't, I mean, from a poker player standpoint, you obviously realise that the whole thing's an independent event, and therefore you should not let that thing happen. But if someone mulligans down to 4, as has happened in this game 1, a lot of the times that can influence their future decisions. You know, I'm going to keep my 7 because I don't want to mulligan back down to 4. Well, if you're randomising your deck correctly, you shouldn't. That shouldn't be an issue.
So Neil's taking a little bit of a beating here, but 14's still plenty of life.
Currently, but really depends what Alessandro... That's another Thoughtseize from Alessandro. He's drawn both his sideboarded Thoughtseizes in this game, and he's...
And it's sort of doing things like that that really turn games in your favour. You know, a lot of people like to think Magic is purely a game of skill where the best deck and the best players win all the time, but if you just draw your sideboard cards, generally that's the biggest edge you can ever have in a game.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you can never say Magic is a 100% game of skill, because the best, I believe it was recently, the best record on the Pro Tour is currently held by LSV, Luis Scott Vargas, and his win rate is somewhere around 60 to 62%. So it's like the best player on the Pro Tour loses 35 to 40% of his games. So there are just some matches you're going to end up not winning. And Neil's had a very strong record in English PTQs for a very long period of time. And he'll come back and he'll top 8 more PTQs in the future as well, but he's definitely struggling in this
It's something
match.
we'll talk about in future videos, how generally, certainly in the UK scene, most people sort of know everyone else, and you'll find quite often some of the same people making the top 8s each time. So I don't think that's largely to do with the fact that they're that much more skillful. I think it's more to do with the fact that the general field don't put the effort in. You know, I think if the general field actually made an effort, then you'd see a lot more varied sort of top 8s.
There is certainly that point, but a lot of the fact is currently, especially with modern day life and everything like that, it's how much is it worth putting in the effort to get up to that sort of level.
Well, you have to enjoy Magic, I always find, to play the PTQs.
Yeah, I believe.
There were people who played the PTQs and they didn't really enjoy Magic. They did it because they wanted to go to the Pro Tour, and that kind of myth's been a little debunked by people like Brian Kibler, explaining how it's just way too expensive.
Yeah, I mean the 4th Pro Tour should at least mitigate the problems with the Pro Players Club somewhat, but there's always been the case that Magic has really never been a game that you can play long term and expect to make money.
So Alessandro is doing a bit of counting up here.
Yeah, with those 2 discard spells stripping Neil's hand to pieces, he's really got Neil on the rack here, and because Neil's deck has so many dead draws in it, I just don't see a real way for Neil to come back into this game at this point. If he hits a coronet off the top, it's possible he can at least stem the bleeding somewhat, but nope.
So Alessandro wins this 2-1, goes on to the semi-final, and maybe if we get a chance we'll have a chat with Neil at some point.